Weibo, Cassante is open. This, I have to expect this is going to be the blind. You do still have the Rumble available, but I think you'd be willing to counter that with Galio. Weibo going for the Vi, however, trying to get some early agency here for the jungle.
Yeah, this is one of Tian's most comfortable champions just throughout his career as well. Just something that can engage very heavily, which is always one of his strengths as a jungler, the early games, making sure that his laners are able to get ahead. That's what helped him win a world championship, and that's what's going to help Weibo potentially here in this series. Let's see what the response is for BLG. That Rumble has always been a very safe blind, and that is going to be selected here for Bin.
So BLG now need to be thinking about the Galio counter that's going to be coming down on Weibo. Are they going to be willing to opt into that trade? And what jungler are they going to be looking to pair alongside it? You would be thinking that we'd want to see more of a AD bruiser, especially something like a Xin Zhao to be able to fight versus the Vi, but instead going for the Sejuani, which to me hints at them being able to play the Yone, which once we get later into the game will be a lot better. But so we'll see what Weibo are going to be going for. They immediately snap up the Galio and Kai'Sa.
Those are two powerful champions, a lot of engage, a lot of crowd control here in the Galio, and then Light can follow up on anything that these engagers throw at him and throw at BLG. We'll see what the last response is here for Knight on this R3. The Corki would make a lot of sense as an AD threat that can go into both the bottom lane and the mid lane, or we could just go to that Yone that you were talking about.
There we go. So really strong side laning potential, especially if Wei is going to be hovering around mid. Galio needs to be a bit careful. He'll have a lot of HP early on into the game, but you look at the team fight setup already here for Weibo, and we're expecting an AP Kai'Sa build later on into the game. The amount of range that they'll be able to do up against BLG. BLG need to find explosive team fights. And as we round out the rest of this draft, what I want to see from Weibo in particular is how they're going to be able to tie in a little bit more damage, specifically from their solo lanes, or are they going to be going for more of those tanks, especially when we're talking about our mid matchup here between these two.
And you can see right now 80 mid laners seem to be the thing that BLG want to target away from Xiaohu. That Lucian was something that he picked up in Weibo's series against JDG. Didn't end up going exactly his way, but it's always a signature pickup of his and would work very well in this composition. I'd imagine something like the Corki is also on their minds if you are BLG, because that would be another strong AD threat. It would allow for a double marksman composition as well.
Yeah, what bot laners are we going to be getting here from BLG? We want to see kind of the engage supports especially, and there's not a ton of bans going down towards the bottom lane. I would think that with both of these players really wanting to focus on engage, they're not really privy to some of the range supports, that the support pool will start to get pinched as we get further into the series. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Last couple bans, more ADs here for Weibo. The Ezreal taken away. It has been a lot stronger so far, especially when we're talking about those first two item spikes. So Weibo are going to be incredibly strong for the first early portion of the game. If they're able to get to 25 minutes, we're looking at 2-item Ezreal, 2-item Yone, and this Rumble. But after that, we're looking at Weibo. They're going to have really consistent team fighting, so maybe a little bit more engaged from the support position and something that's going to at least enhance some of that damage. We're going to need a really strong mid lane blind here from, or not blind, but kind of counter into the Yone coming out from Xiaohu.
A lot of different options you can go. You could also always flex Light's Kai'Sa into more of an AD oriented build. That could allow for Xiaohu to pick up a mage of some sort here, something that can issue a little bit more long-range magic damage, just long-range damage in general to work alongside the heavy engaged composition that they have with the Vi and the Rel. But it looks like instead that Corki is going to be hovered and locked in here for Xiaohu. That means that we likely will also be seeing Light go more towards that AD AP-oriented build, and the response from on the other side is an R5 Alistar.
That R5 Alistar just feels so broken right now. Like, I'm playing Alistar into Galio, I've got Kai'Sa and Corki on top. Like, you can even stop the Rel. I think that on with this Alistar has so much of a burden to be able to help win them this game. Again, early game here for BLG. They have a lot more playmaking tools. Weibo, however, double marksman, higher range, the ability to destroy objectives, especially if we're talking about having double marksman. Weibo are going to be very strong if this game is able to go late. But so we're going to hopefully see from BLG an explosive early game.
Just an explosive series I'm hoping for overall here, Alk. Best of 5, again, in that true Fearless format, in the postseason, in the lower bracket. Loser of this series will be eliminated from contention for competing in first stand. We'll have to wait until the split number 2 in order to get right back into play. I know that both of these teams would consider this finish down here at 7th, 8th an absolute failure. Even though it's more of a shorter, more niche split, they both definitely want to win no matter the consequences.
Exactly. It'd be a pretty big disappointment. I think we can be honest with the viewers. These are two teams that we expected to go a lot further here in the tournament. Weibo in their series versus JDG, they end up losing that series. They're here now in the lower bracket, and same thing for BLG. That upset, I think, really having to kind of turn up a fire underneath this team. And we'll see which team is actually able to kind of make it past this point, because not only are you going to have to be able to kind of show your best today, but you got to keep going for the next couple days straight.
Yeah, another series here tomorrow against ThunderTalk awaits the winner of this best of 5 between BLG and Weibo Gaming. We're on to the Rift for game number 1. Let's get it started.
Typical 5-point here. So want to be tracking where these junglers are going, especially when we're talking about our mid-jungles. Tian and Xiaohu have been a very exciting duo, and while Wei and Knight haven't necessarily been able to piece it together so far in early 2025, Sejuani Yone is so potent, whether it is in the mid lane or in a side lane. I'm going to be expecting for BLG and wanting to see how they play these outer lanes to be able to grab an advantage, maybe move into an objective, and force Weibo into uncomfortable spots before we get there.
Now remember, my little diagnosis here, Alk, in game number 1 is that for Weibo's side, they have not done well in terms of executing on these lane swapped opportunities. They went forward in game number 4, resulted in a disastrous dive of Breathe 2 times over. In game number 5, when they tried to send their solo lanes into mid lane early to get some push, also resulted in them giving up first blood. So we're going to see them try it again, and this time it will be that standard swap. Light and Hung will be around the top side, and they will be matching into Bin unless they decide to overload on the bot side here for BLG.
I can understand why we saw BLG not able to cross over the river. I mean, Rel, Kaisa, the 2v2 there is going to be really potent, and knowing that he's not going to be able to do anything in the lane swap here, I think we're already kind of saying, look, we have Rumble mid, breathe, breathe.
He must have gotten caught out by the bush or something like that. He already has to flash away. Elk has his.
Oh
Doesn't
my
want to
god.
use it. That would have been pretty disastrous if he went down right there. Instead, he's going to look to stick around here. He did start Justice Punch, which means he's not going to either have any wave clear or a ton of defensive abilities here with Shield of Duran as well. Bin actually opting towards coming up here towards the top lane, going to make it a 2v2 with Wei, who has to flash away from the crashdown as Bin will retreat to underneath his tower.
All right, happens. We used our flashes, but this does mean that Bin is allowed to catch this wave. Breathe ends up having to recall, so while he caught some of that bottom lane wave, still uses his own summoner spells, which is going to be, I think, an advantage here for BLG. I mean, Bin basically untouched during all of this wave. I'll say thank you to my jungler for doing that. And I mean, look, Tian is on the opposite side of the map. He's trying to cross into this top side. He has no camps to be able to take. They know Wei was up here. I think right now Breathe has to be very careful. The next 4 minutes are going to be hell under that bottom lane turret, because if he gets dove, I mean, Galio without resources is still Galio, but you really want to make sure that you're able to at least get something for your losses while you're doing this lane swap early.
I will say Breathe got not a bad, stick of things, especially after how that early level 1 went. Because Wei went up to the top side to bail out Bin, that means he was not there for an attempted dive once Breathe continued his teleport to come on through. So that means that he's able to farm up some XP. The wave's in a terrible spot right now. You can definitely say that, but it will mean all the difference if Weibo can make this trade work onto Bin underneath the top lane tier 1 turret. Tian dashes in, Hung beautifully juggling that turret aggro is going to give Weibo first blood.
Yeah, with Elk and On not being able to push the wave hard enough or fast to be able to get it in, On isn't able to rotate onto the top side. There's going to be a ward that does spout out Wei, and now Bin's TPing straight into 3. He still has flash.
And Weibo's going to try here.
Oh god.
Okay, nice flash away from Bin. Meanwhile, on the bottom side of the map, Breathe is in a little bit of trouble, stuck between turrets. Actually, Bin forces Hung to flash out because he took a lot of damage on that initial dive, and so that is a summoner spell trade that Bin is more than willing to take in that 3v1 situation. On the other side of things, Breathe still alive, although he's losing a lot of minions and XP now underneath his own turret and forced to go back to base.
Risky business there, man, because if that bot lane dive, if they're able to either force Breathe or if Bin ends up going down, the opponent team has to be feeling so strong about this. So much focus coming in from Tian on splitting the map here. He's going to be having his entire top side quadrant and taking waves, while Wei, focused on the bot side, hasn't really been able to. He's been really focused on getting some of that farm and clearing some of those camps. But, I mean, the effect on the map, Tian got first blood, but again, first blood, not all that useful now, considering we have the feats of strength. If he's able to repeat this onto Bin, however, maybe there's some early plays, but I mean, like, we've got grub spawning in a minute. That's going to be the kind of timer that I'm looking at so early on.
So it's a summonerless Bin for the next few minutes, and that'll coincide with when these grubs will spawn around the top side of the map. And so BLG keeping their top laner up here does make sense for the time being, as looks like, on the other hand, Light and Hung still going to stay around there as well, as we have reached the point in the game where the defenses on the turrets are now gone in both top and mid lane. That means that both sides will be able to trade things rather evenly, as we still see Tian just really hovering around this top side.
Yeah. With grub spawning in 30, I think it is interesting that we're seeing BLG put a lot of focus towards bottom side, and the fact that they haven't rotated their team. We talked about early how in a side lane, this Yone is going to be very potent, but I would expect for them to be focusing the grubs so that they can empower this champion. But with an early objective need to try to get dragons, maybe they kill Breathe here?
Yeah, looks like he's taking a lot of damage here. The taunt not going to do anything to deny Wei, and picking up the first kill of the game here for BLG. Trade on the other side of the map as Tian, under the overheated turret, nearly goes down. But Light's able to pick up a kill and get Weibo back in front, 2-1.
Another turret plate here, and while it is the trade going over to the bottom side of the map, Breathe there only trades this. I mean, he's level 4.5. Bin, I mean, he's full level over his opponent. This will also be grubs going over to Weibo, and while BLG are able to grab the dragon, I will say again, we wanted to see BLG with some early explosive gameplay, them being able to hit their first item power spikes. Weibo, however, have been able to, I think, play this so well early on, and BLG not necessarily punishing. So the game is incredibly even, but we want to look at Weibo as the game goes on. 3 items, I think that they're going to be spiking incredibly hard. Yeah,
you have to imagine that both of these teams did their research coming in, and if you're BLG, you had to know that this lane swap was coming, and you could have been able to see, what was done against it by JDG to help it work, and they actually instead went for the opposite plan. When the lane swap happened in game number 4 against JDG, what JDG decided to do is just overload the bottom side, send all 5 down bot, and pick up a bunch of kills, and that worked very well. This time it was more of a bail bin out situation here for Wei, and so far it has not gone as well here for BLG. Weibo in a very, very solid game state right now.
Tian is on this side of the map. They have vision of where the support is, and so looks like trying to get at least a lot of the spells. There are no spells available here for Breathe, so he is all by himself.
Yeah, flashes away here from the headbutt, but the pulverized lands all the same. Wei underneath the tower is still level 6, and with that Glacial Prison should be able to take down Breathe once more. Kill score has been evened up, and however, a lot of both of those kills have gone into the Sejuani, which is maybe not the best place for it.
And I was about to say, Rumble now has access to the equalizer, so that minion wave can at least prevent the dive for this wave, but you already see Xiaohu and Tian, where are they? Topside jungle. Knight is going to at least get vision of where this Vi is. You already see a BLG are starting to deploy out on this side of the map. If they're able to win this fight, you have to imagine you're looking at some of the summoner spells here. Bin's flash is coming up in the next few moments, and with Herald spawning, or the grub spawning in 2.5, maybe there was another play there, but Tian doesn't want to get collapsed upon. None of the members of Weibo are there and has to expend the flash. So that could be something that BLG are going to be looking for, especially with a lot of ultimates up and available.
So you look around at the gold right now. BLG have a slight edge, and a lot of that is towards the top side of the map as Wei with the kills, and then BLG Spin with just the farm advantage also has about a 300 gold lead, despite both him and Breathe at 0-2. But that's okay if you're Weibo, honestly. If you're Galio, you don't need too much economy in order to be useful in these later game team fights. And so this is what Weibo opted in for when they went for the swap. They would be okay with Breathe falling a little bit behind if it means that Light and Hung are able to get out in front. And what's going to matter now in these next couple of minutes, Alk, is what Weibo do with this strong double marksman composition and with a Vi who has a little bit of damage as well. Especially looking for when this next spawn of grubs occurs in about 2 minutes.
It's all about the setup here. 1.5 minutes. You already see supports moving on forward. On is going to be late, so no deep wards are going to get placed down in the favor of BLG. Knight was covering this top side wave, and they had kind of rotated some of the members over, trying to leverage the teleports between the two top laners here, especially with the fight that's coming in a minute's time. Weibo so indexed on trying to get some of these turrets already. A lot of demolish procs going down, and that's 4 plates here from the top tier 1, so a lot of gold going over to not only Light in the early game, but now trying to accelerate Xiaohu on this Corki.
Yeah, so getting a little bit of gold into both of these marksmen going to be big. Xiaohu does have his teleport, so despite him still being out on the map, he'll be able to come back in time for that grub to spawn if necessary. Looks like he wanted to go for another wave, but knew better of it, especially with Hung going back to base, and so instead opts to back out and reset for this next potential fight. I will say, though, take a look at the minimap right now. Tian is on the bot side of the map clearing out the Krugs, and so looks like BLG might be the ones who are able to get to these grubs first.
They may have made Corki more of an AD champion, but... Oh, wait a minute.
Okay, Knight coming in with the Killer Instinct, actually blocking out the Fate Seal. Knight has to flash away. And no Summoner spells burned on the other end for Light. That's an absolutely great trade for Weibo.
Wow. I think our two mid laners there were like going blow for blow. Knight saw that Xiaohu stayed for another wave, and he's like, you know what? I can do the same thing here too. So losing the flash, losing the ultimate here, I think BLG are going to be a lot weaker for this fight. I don't know if you necessarily want to be able to contest. You do have Heartsteel done here for the Sejuani, but if you're really trying to play on your Sejuani's item power spike, I don't necessarily think this is going to be the fight that they're looking for.
No, they're sending it.
They're just giving, they're not able to do this. I mean, Breeze should be able to move. He's still pushing the bottom lane wave over. Tian's not in position. Weibo, they got a free start to the Herald or to the grubs here, and they're going to show up late to the party. They're going to lose all these grubs.
Yeah, no flash, no ulti on Knight, and they still decide it's not the fight that they want to go for Weibo. They're instead just going to let Breeze farm plates on the bottom side. Bin is going to teleport down there to negate that, and now the Glacial Prison comes out, and Xiaohu nearly went down for that. So BLG essentially getting those grubs for just the price of a plate down bottom.
Yeah, kind of feels weird. We'll see if they're able to get more off of this play later, but stopping those grubs, another feat of strength that is kind of stopped from occurring, at least early on. Next kill is going to give us our Warfare, and maybe it's up here in the top side, but everybody's in this area. You see that Tian and Hung in position, Wei and Honor taking control.
Oh, Hung, he tried to go a little bit too aggressive, and he's going to pay for it with his life. The Ignite is ticking from On, but Wei is going to pick it up, claim that feat of Warfare, and go on a killing spree here for BLG.
But what else is getting done on the map here? Because aside from our two AD carries kind of sitting in mid and pushing out waves, all it is going to buy a small amount of time on the map for BLG to take some objectives. Looks like for Wei, it's going to be him taking that top side scuttle and then moving down into the bottom side. But we need to see BLG advancing the game in more meaningful ways, whether it's them being able to sneak a turret on a side lane or kind of get a sneaky kill that opens up one part of the map. Because, again, we are looking at Weibo. First item complete here for Light. Xiaohu's done to getting his Trinity Force almost online. Tian has the Sundered Sky. All of these items are going to be a lot more important as the game goes on. And for Weibo, for BLG, sorry, they're supposed to have this huge spike on 1 and 2. I mean, Trinity Force Ezreal, that should be the one we're looking at, especially with Knight here on this Yone. And they just haven't really been able to piece it together, so still waiting to see BLG Sleeping Giants.
Now Hung looking for maybe something here on to Knight, but instead just going to try to get that Demolish proc down and secure that first tower of the game for Weibo. So kills over to BLG, tower over to Weibo. It'll be up to the objectives to say who can claim that feat of strength, and BLG looking to claim it right here by taking it down this Cloud Drake. If they pick it up, it will be theirs, and it's going to belong to them unless Tian picked up the steal. He went for it, but was unsuccessful.
And I'm surprised, too, because he went over the wall. That's that moment as a jungler we were like, whoa, hey, wait a minute, wait. Do I have to use Flash to get back over the wall? Weibo have not been on the ball, and that, I think, comes off of the back of Hung dying on that top side, right? With the support down, you can't exactly push for vision down into the bottom side of the map, and Weibo are starting to slip in terms of objectives. They are a team that, I mean, really, in the early part of the season, I think worked so well between this 2v2 in the jungle and mid, but Tian has kind of been waiting to look for angles. He's been farming up, and that I think was also a symptom of a very problematic season a couple years ago for Weibo, where Xiaohu in the roster were a team that didn't do very much in the early game. You were thinking with the addition of Tian and with Hung that this team would kind of get the gears together, but I feel like we're starting to slowly revert into, let's scale up, let's get into team fights around, 25, 35 minutes and see if we can kind of take our hand there.
And we've seen flashes of that early game here for Weibo throughout the season, but has not been in full force, absolutely, as, you know, right now, aside from the plays up there in terms of just the diving based on the lane swaps, Weibo have not been able to make any successful plays, but as I say that, Hung on the roam down towards the bottom lane to try to pick up a kill onto Bin, but it was nicely warded, and meanwhile it's BLG making the plays onto Xiaohu in his own jungle, and it's going to be an easy pickup here for the two tanks, not even close as Wei picks up kill number 4 on the Sejuani.
And great discipline coming in from Bin, uses the equalizer, cancels out the wave, still probably going to go down. It's the flash coming in.
Yeah, and it's going to be followed up here by the Killer Instinct from Morado, and Hung's going to pick it up for himself, so the trade is made on the opposite side of the map, and while Knight gets his own fair share of the top lane tower, looks like overall going to remain rather even here for both sides.
This map sucks though for Weibo. Look at what they cost throughout that map. It was the summoner spell of Bin to go down, but you lose access to mid, so this mid-tier 1 has taken a beating. Like you were just noting, Knight has been hitting on this top-tier 1, and I think has enough damage here. BLG are about to get 2 turrets off of a single play from this bottom lane, and Weibo, it's just not enough, man. You're not pushing the game in a meaningful way. The state of the map is still in an advantage here for BLG. We need to see this team wake up when it comes to team fights. They're supposed to have this huge wombo, great dive onto a slippery target like an Ezreal, and we haven't quite seen that team fight. I don't think BLG are really giving them the spots, and we need to see Weibo link up with their support if they want to be able to make this happen.
Could be around that Herald, which is spawning shortly. However, looks like neither team is prepared for it on spawn. We'll have to wait a couple of minutes to see that fight happen. As the next thing that Weibo have to worry about here, Alk, is the dragon scaling as well. It's 2-0 for BLG very quickly. That next Ocean Dragon spawning in about 2 minutes. And you remember that, you know, BLG, if they can get to that 2-item spike, and that's where they're really strong, and that could coincide very nicely with a 4-0 dragon lead picked up for them. So Weibo have to be very conscientious about that and focus on securing these major objectives over the next couple of minutes.
We're seeing Bin right now on the bottom side of the map. His equalizer's coming up at 8 seconds. He'll be able to grab this bottom tier 1, but it's not going to turn into gold spent, so it's going to be in the pocket here. BLG, I think, more focused on, hey, we're going to just make sure that we're able to open up a little bit more of the map, give ourselves longer side lanes, and even take control. But it seems like they want to make a turn, stop them from entering into mid. They can even grab the mid-tier 2 if they continue to screen Weibo
Oh,
out.
here comes On with the Blast Cone. 2-man pull combined with the Equalizer. That is so much damage. Xiaohu is already dead. And now BLG with that numbers advantage. Hero's Entrance comes out. It's going to do a big amount of knocking up people, but not a ton of damage. It's already a double kill in for Bin, and it's 3 kills for nothing in favor of BLG.
They explode out onto the fight. Great wards from BLG. Spot out the members of Weibo. On makes an engage from 1 million screens away, dude. This Hex Flash plus combo from Alistar makes it happen. Weibo just weren't able to really respond, and that is so many summoner spells got now. Specifically the flashes on both of the marksmen of Weibo. As Elk now, you caught way too many mid lane waves, bro. You gotta give this one up.
It is a
And
shutdown
flash,
over
man.
for Light, but it's a mere respite from the onslaught that BLG has put onto Weibo Gaming. Kill notably onto Light. That is going to be big in terms of gold later on, but now Tian might have done a bit his fair share of greeting as well, as Wei's going to stun him up. On is joining the party, and you talked about it earlier here, Alk, On and Wei playing like brothers on the map here today. He blocks out the Vault Breaker with his flash, and he allows Knight to scoop on in and pick that one up.
Oh man, okay, finally. It took us a couple series, but On and Wei seem to have at least ironed out some of the kinks that we saw from them in their last series. So, hey, it's only game 1. Maybe it takes a couple more games. We get more of that TTBLG On and Wei. But for the time being, BLG, they're going to continue to destroy this game, man.
They're doing great right now. 100% kill participation, and it seems to really be those two basically contributing almost everything to these plays here, whether it's in terms of engage or even damage. I mean, those Wei and On together, despite being just like an Alistar and Sejuani, have been able to do so much on their own. You can see here for On, who's having a great game so far on the Alistar, just immediately pushes the go button onto the 2 marksmen.
That Blast Cone, again, that ward that's in the blue buff kind of gave them some vision of the Weibo members, and then just taking the Blast Cone plus the ability to just go right in. I mean, this Galio ult is just too late. The members that were in the middle of the fight were already taken down. The Galio just jumps in to immediately get taken off the map. And Just feels like I think the quota for this game is just going to be we're staying around for one too many objectives, one too many plays here. We are tempo killing our game. It is, you know, the one mid wave, the additional top wave for our two mid laners. Here it was a scuttle crab, so I'm not a jungler, but I get it. You know, the scuttle crab is a very tasty treat, but ends up blowing up another kill here for BLG.
I mean, I guess, but not like right after the Rift Herald goes down. I mean, especially after Light went back to base.
He got the objective, man. That's all that matters. If I also got the scuttle, I'd be like, look, Worth, got mine.
Right, we're from North America, so that's what we believe. So.
True. This is an English commentary broadcast, so we got no EU folks, at least for right now. Our second series changes just a little bit, but as we get into this game, we have a little bit of time. We have Otacon spawning now. Maybe there's a fight on towards the top side, but with where everybody else on the map, doesn't seem like we're going to get too much action. Maybe with Knight and Wei, there's a little bit more here onto Hung, but they're just skirmishing. I wanted to talk about our jungle and support here on being someone that is, I think, had a lot of criticism levied towards him in some of his regular season and, you know, some of the most important games. But Wei, his introduction to this BLG roster had a lot of hiccups. It wasn't just like a plug and play, like we're just putting this guy in over Shun and that'll just be kind of it. He's going to give us some more stability. He has, I think, really leveled up this team. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, oh my goodness. That is just a 100-0 of Tian right there as Elk is the one to pick up the final kill. However, the response here from Weibo could be big. That's a nice shutdown by Light. And now Weibo have made it 2 for 1 and potentially looking for more. Elk does a lot of poke damage with those double ups intact as well. But Xiaohu is answering back with the rockets. Equalizer does take Xiaohu down to about 500 HP. The big taunt onto Knight. That means he's not able to go any further. Shifting forward is Elk to try to land one more arcane shot, but is unable to do so as BLG will head back with Weibo actually picking up the advantage there in terms of kills.
BLG wanted that fight, and right before this objective, it seems like mostly they wanted to see if they can grab another kill. Obviously, with how dangerously Hung was playing on this Rel, they thought maybe they can get a little bit more. The 2 kills going over, I think, are not as consequential as they may immediately seem. They got rid of Tian, but look at where the rest of this fight is. All of these buttons are being used onto the Vi, and afterwards it just allows for the front line of Weibo to really do their job, which is delay BLG and get a good amount of damage out from our Kai'Sa. So BLG opt into a fight that ends up backfiring a little bit. It was a lot of important buttons as well. So I want to see what Weibo's response is. Again, double marksman here. Galio can TP for this Otacon play. And we're looking at the items. 2-item core here for Weibo. This is where the game starts to get, I think, a little scary if Weibo or if BLG do not have an overwhelming advantage.
And again, Light is the one who's picked up those shutdowns, and Xiaohu is the other main carry, nearly getting caught out there by the Glacial Prison of Wei. Light nearly at that Nashor's Tooth, not there just yet, however, still going to be doing a ton of damage with already the Ginsus in his inventory alongside the Kraken Slayer. Otacon around the top side right now. Got aggroed a little bit here by the Prey Seeker, but I don't think any team wants to start it up just yet. It's going to be vision clearing right now for Weibo, and now they will go on to hitting the Otacon.
Oh, look at this. Breathe has an insane
but
flank
he's spotted.
Here. He sees Wei. Wei will now get spotted after the pink had been moved.
So they're going to collapse into the Galio instead. Yeah, his Otacon is down. That is the revives available here for Weibo, and that will certainly be something that Bin will utilize. But on the other side of the fight, it is Weibo stacked up as 4, and Light picking up yet another kill onto Bin. On goes in with that Unbreakable Will. A huge ultimate coming in from Knight on the Yone, but it does not matter because Light is still untouched, and there are rebirths in for Weibo. Can Light finish off another kill? He got so close to both Wei and On, but he will go back into the fountain. But things go very well for Weibo on that play. They get a ton more kills onto their AD carry, as well as picking up that Otacon.
Yeah, the Otacon buff is great for them. I think the more important part now here is Weibo should be in a good spot to contest for this next dragon. We haven't touched on too much of the dragons with how kind of slow action this game has been, but that'll be soul for BLG if they're able to grab that. I take a look at this Otacon. I mean, Breathe buys so much time on this backside. He's with Elk and with Wei. And while the engage here coming in from Weibo is awesome, I think the fact that this engage from On and Knight, it just buys so much time. It wastes a lot of the clock here for Weibo. The follow-up as well. The dragon's taken by Weibo, but BLG, they want to keep going.
That is big. That denies the Ocean Soul right now here for BLG, but it might come at the cost of Breathe, and it does. Elk picks up the last hit, and now Hong is next on the menu. does in that dismounted form, not going to be able to get away. Who will they feed the kill to? It will be Elk once more, who is trying to go ban for ban with his 80 carry opponent in Light. These 80 carries getting very, very strong at this point of the game, Elk, as BLG control the fight.
It's 2,000 gold, but I think the gold just feels so much more oppressive. The lead that BLG have. Weibo just look lost on the map. They're not team fighting particularly incredibly, and we're not seeing the front line of this team kind of be able to stand tall for the marksman. BLG are just making fast plays. They're using Sejuani ult as an engage button to try to set up the rest of the team, and as soon as they find 1-2 picks, Weibo seem like they kind of go for that all-in. Everybody kind of collapses in, and it allows for BLG to play a little bit more in the mud, play with the chaos of their composition with how many explosive ultimates they have.
And yeah, I agree with you here, Alk, as BLG was able to pick up that bottom lane tier 2. The lead still feels like they are in control of this game. Weibo had to throw everything they had at both of those neutral objectives just to keep the game running and alive right now at this point. And while they were able to do so, the question will be now around this Baron. We'll say though, Light is the strongest player here in the game, not matched closely by Elk. As now it is Breathe getting targeted out, just going a little bit too far forward here for that wave. The hero's entrance going to get canceled, and that is a big kill going over to BLG.
Breathe is now a large pain point for this team. The early game didn't look great. The Galio just hasn't been able to connect, and now it's going to be a Baron start here for BLG. They still have a lot of important ultimates here, and we'll see if Weibo, if they can make the defense onto this play. Light has now taken a mid-tier 1. Tian is waiting for the steal.
Yeah, but it looks like BLG know that's going to happen, so they try to push Tian out of the pit. Glacial Prison over him as well, as that Baron will get bursted down without Tian being able to even get near the Baron Nashor, as it gets picked up here by the red side. Mid-prio was relinquished for a little bit, but BLG will pick that right back up.
Okay, BLG, how can we close out this game? We've got level 16 on a couple of our members coming up soon. That means rank 3 in a Yone ult, in an Equalizer. I think those are going to be huge buttons for them to be able to press in this next fight. And how do they close this out? Because as dominant as this is, if for some reason, some miracle team fight has occurred for Weibo, there is a way for them to get back into this game. Strong team fighting. You're getting almost a 4th item here. I think my look is at these two 80 carries. Elk on this Ezreal has been so aggressive, shifting forward, trying to find more, and Light is starting to pick up items. He's starting to get to that point on Kai'Sa where even tanks start to shudder at the fear of the plasma procs.
Yeah, I mean, those W's are now upgraded, will be coming out every few seconds now, as long as they can hit onto the champions. So right now, BLG don't care too much about that, because they are right now dismantling the towers of Weibo. They are very close to taking down that top tier 2. Now the mid lane inhibitor turret is now the target, and Weibo have to take the time to pull the trigger, to engage, to try to save the game for themselves. Looks like it's not going to be before this inhibitor tower falls. We now, though, see a teleport coming in from Breathe, as that is going to be the start of a fight, potentially. Breathe has the flash and the taunt. He's going to try to go in. Just waiting for his right moment, biding his time, and he might have bided a little bit too much time, as now he's getting collapsed on here by Weibo, and it's all too late. The carries are too far out until Light comes in with the killer instinct. Hero's entrance over the top will be able to knock up a couple, but look at Bin. He's fighting in a 1v1 against Xiaohu, and he will win. Equalizer on to Breathe to try to just finish the job, put the icing on top of the cake, because Bilibili Gaming have run away with this first matchup, and they're going to go up 1-0 in this best of 5.
It looked close until it wasn't. BLG have been so dominant here in our first game of an elimination series between these two teams. And kind of feels like BLG of old. The solo lanes are doing well, and the jungle really accentuating some of the strengths of our bottom lane.
On to the Nexus they go. The respawns are going to be just a little bit too late unless some miracle happens here for Weibo. But BLG, they're just playing with their food. They know the history here, and it's all them favored. It's now 10 maps in a row here won by Bilibili, as game 1 goes to them.
Let's go. I was so worried coming into this whether or not BLG were going to have that same fire, that same ability to compete after their TT series. Maybe it was going to be a bit of a slower series in my mind, but I'm glad to see that they've come to play. And Weibo, some of those kind of misgivings that we had from them in prior series, especially in their JDG loss a couple weeks ago, I feel like some of those habits are really dying very hard.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to the lane swap, and while we thought it worked out a little bit for them at the start with the kills that they had onto Bin, at the end of the day, Bin ended up getting more than Breathe did in terms of the farm, the XP, and while we thought that that could have been okay for Weibo as a whole, it really did not end up working out at the end of the day. Bin ended up becoming a very strong presence, and Breathe really was a non-factor throughout that game. And even though we saw a very good performance from Light, who had a lot of resources given to him, it just was not enough, as BLG looking like their old selves a little bit here in that first game.
Yeah. It felt weird when we looked at the lane swap. Again, like the fact that Breathe had to teleport immediately after walking into the lane versus Ezreal Alistar. Has to lose the summoner spell. Bin, despite going down, I think showing more of that consistency of making sure he gets the team fights on good items and he's able to contribute properly to the team. It just doesn't feel like Weibo really kind of pulled the trigger. I know that we got to see Tian on this Vi, but I don't feel like we had a lot of great ultimates. We didn't see him connect very well with Breathe either. And I know we're kind of going down the list, but it does feel like Xiaohu had a lot less impact on this Corki versus someone like Yone. And like Knight's Yone is great and all, but this AD matchup for Xiaohu, we expect more. Like, again, this was our head-to-head coming into the series.
Yeah, and you know, we kept talking about Elk as being this, or sorry, about Light being this big carry here for Weibo, but Xiaohu was also on an AD carry. He was also on a champion that is supposed to dish out a ton of damage, and my prediction is once we get to those damage charts, it's not going to be very much in his favor, as Knight really had himself the better end of things. I specifically remember that 3-man ult after Weibo took the Otacon, and that could have been a disaster for BLG if that ultimate did not connect. It could have been close to like a 4 to 5 to nothing ace, but it ended up just being a couple of kills given over, and you know, those shutdowns or the rebirths here for BLG gave him enough gold back in response in order to keep an even game state.
And so now we come into game 2 with, I think, a lot of important champions taken away. We no longer have to deal with Rumble Galio, as you know, things are going to be sticking on the ban table. Cassante still up and ready for either of our two top laners, especially I am expecting the Ambessa versus Cassante in game 2. It's just, I think it fits really well. Bin's Cassante is legendary, and Breathe has really started to move more into the Ambessa, so I'm kind of looking forward. I know we haven't talked about it too much, but what are you feeling for MVP?
I mean, it's got to be one of those two guys that you were talking about in the pregame, either Wei or On. You can see here, they were just, you know, on every single play here in this game. Nearly 100% kill participation throughout the entire match.
The joke is sometimes you get on, sometimes you get off, right? That's just how it goes.
He was on today.
And this game 1 at least, he was on. He was everywhere that they needed to be. We got to see the dynamic duo between the jungle and support of BLG, and On and Wei. If this is the level of play we're going to be seeing for them for the rest of playoffs, I think BLG are going to be definitely back in form. But we need to see more sample size. We need to see more games. And I love with the kind of, I guess, proactivity we got from this Sejuani. Sejuani, I think, archetypically is like a champion that a lot of people expect to be a little bit slower, but it felt like every single time he had the opportunity to, Wei was moving forward, finding ults, forcing the play, forcing the issue, and making Weibo have to have answers. Otherwise, they're just stunned and they're down.
And this is the one opportunity where Weibo looked like they could have come back into this game after taking down the Otacon, and then it was Knight here on the Yone, really holding things down for them. And even though Light picks up another shutdown, it could have been, again, so much worse, as you see just how low Wei and On got here in that fight.
I feel so bad for Light, man. He got Kaisa pilled this game. He basically had to play against 1 million champions that CC him, and his front line was dead. I'll just be a Light apologist. I don't care. You know, people in chat might just say he got carried. Kelsey Moser, our producer today, might also say he got carried today. And honestly, I'm not going to allow it. He could go 0-15, and he's still in my heart.
So moving forward here for Weibo, a lot of the kind of mistakes that we were talking about going in, whether it was misexecution on allocation of resources after initiating a lane swap and then set up around those neutral objectives. I was mostly thinking about like the Rift Heralds and the Dragons that Weibo gave up very, very early. And you know, it seemed like they had a decent amount of time after that JDG series to try to look back and fix things, and so far those fixes have not worked, to be fair, against one of the strongest teams that we historically have had here in the LPL.
The team fights didn't look great. I mean, even like you were saying, the lane swaps, right? We touched on it a little bit before. BLG got, I think, the better of them at the end of the day. And We got to see, I think, a bit of a change. We wanted to see, at least I wanted to see, some more focus on the grubs with the composition that BLG had. They gave up the first set. They instead wanted to play on the second. And we're going to be looking at our two supports, I think, more often throughout this series, as Hung got caught out a fair few times. And I think there was also a problem that we got to see in their JDG series.
And I think we have now our player of the game here for this first matchup. I mean, I would predict it's one of Wei
Yay!
or on, and
It's
it
our
is Wei, the
jungler!
Sejuani.
Good boy. Good boy on the Sejuani. He earned it.
Very, very nice. And we'll see if Wei and the rest of BLG can build off of that performance here in game number 2, or if Weibo have some sort of answer. We're going to take a short break, but before we do so, we want to give a big thank you to all of you who are watching, and we are extremely grateful to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up our show. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but also a huge bulk of it goes to pay on-air talent and content creators that make the LPL English stream possible. You can subscribe to our Coffee that is linked in the chat below to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews that we'll be getting a little bit more later on in the playoffs. BLG take game number 1. We'll see if Weibo can come back after this.